Exiting a business is more than just cashing out. It is personal and it takes planning. Today we are going to explore this idea with Pete McDowell. Hello, I am Doug Marshall, and this is 3 Questions for a Professional. I'll take a minute to introduce Pete to you. He grew up in upstate New York and is now a 17-year Seattle area resident. Pete received a BA degree in industrial design from Purdue University and has experience in sales and marketing, strategic planning, lean management, and quality improvement. He has held general manager and CEO positions in privately held companies with under $50 million in revenue. He has worked to grow companies as well as changing their course and turning them around. Eventually, Pete transitioned to management consulting and financial planning. Pete's current clients range from baby boomers selling their family business to owners cashing in on early business success. He works with clients in almost all industries, including aerospace, manufacturing, fabrication, industrial services, construction, distribution, transportation, or logistics. If you make it, move it, build it, or service it, Pete is someone you want to know. He is a true professional, and it is my great privilege to have the opportunity to ask him 3 questions.
Well, Pete, thank you for joining me. I am really looking forward to asking you these 3 questions and getting your insights into how you work with business owners.
Well, thank you, Doug, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm glad I can be helpful in some way.
Awesome. So, Pete, in your initial meetings with a business owner, what are some of the questions you're asking them to get your conversation started?
Oh gosh, we have a lot of questions. One area that maybe we'll dive back into in a few minutes is family and relationship questions, and then there are a number of others that we use. Who are they using for professional services? We like to know who are their attorneys, CPAs, wealth managers, and we want to know if these resources are the right ones and that they're appropriate for a business transaction, because there's a lot of ramifications to that. And we also want to know if they are clued into the owner's plans. So has there been any discussion there? We've had a couple things go sideways over the years we've been doing this where the representation wasn't all that great. And if it's okay, I'll name 2 or 3 different examples for that.
Sure.
One was we did an all-cash sale of a company down in McMinnville, Oregon, that was to a big private equity group with a holding in a $80 million medical products company. And that was a quick deal, and actually 75 days start to finish. Unfortunately, our sellers had a small town financial guy that really wasn't equipped to deal with this, and the 1/3 of the proceeds, went right to the IRS after closing. So that was unfortunate. There was no ability to plan for that. We had another instance where we had a client up in Linwood, Washington, and their CPA was problematic. He'd been with the business owner for a long, long time, but he had no idea how to do a business transaction. He was making errors in the tax analysis, and he was unresponsive or slow in getting back to us with our requests. And we finally forced our selling owner to fire the guy. In fact, he made us do the phone call to fire him. About a week before closing, we were able to plug in a much more competent firm to get the work done in the last week, which was great. And then we also had one time a general business attorney, not somebody who's a specialist in business sales. And he treated the process like it was a real estate sale, which it really is quite different. So that was very problematic and took a lot more work on our end to get that through. So that's the first area we like to cover, our professional services. And there's some examples of some things that can go sideways. We also ask general questions about their business sector that they're in or their market and what's going on there. How are they doing there? If they're willing in advance of a non-disclosure agreement just to give us some rough numbers around their revenue and then what is their net operating income, so we can get an idea about whether or not it makes sense for us to move forward with them. And then we like to know, is there anything unique about the business? Do they have any special sauce? How do they fit in? Why would people be interested in them? And finally, it's really important. We want to know, do they have any expectations about the proceeds that they would get out of the business?
Oh, those are all great questions. And I'm sure that anybody watching right now is probably thinking, I ought to think about those things a little bit more closely. Walking away from a business for an owner, I mean, that's a huge deal. It's a big transition. And I'm sure you talk to the business owner about how they're feeling about that personally. But do you ever ask about how the rest of the family feels about this?
Yes, we do. In fact, we bring that up also at our first meeting. The first thing we say to the owner is, if they have a spouse, whether it's a male or female, have you talked to your spouse about this? And what was the response? Are you simpatico, so to speak, in the idea of selling your business? And have you talked to your children? Even if they're adult children and they're off and they're out of the business, they have some kind of affinity for the business, and they usually have some opinions about the sale. And we want to make sure that the next Thanksgiving dinner table conversation isn't going to be acrimonious. It's going to actually be pleasant, and everybody's on the same page with the decision to sell a business. And then if it's a legacy business, even if there's siblings involved or not, but there's other family members who know of the business, have you talked to them? That's very important because they all have feelings about the business. And so right now we're actually working with a business owner selling a company, and he's the 100% owner. His wife is in the business, so obviously he's spoken with her about the sale, and she's in total support of it. And then he also has two sisters in the business, and fortunately they are in support of the sale, but they all are weighing in on who they would like to see as the ideal buyer for the business, because even though they're going to be moving on, there's a legacy component to that. So really the whole family dynamic is very important in a business. And if we don't feel that it's where it should be, we may delay taking on that business owner as a client until we think that everybody's in sync about that. So hopefully that makes sense, because we don't want somebody to make a decision to go forward and then regret it later and pull the plug. So the other thing is important for a family is, what is the post-sale plans? Are they going to travel? Are they just going to plan on playing golf? Are they going to be involved in more charitable organizations or doing things like that? And how deeply have they thought that through? The old saying is, you can only travel for so many months a year or play golf so many times, and then what's next? So we want to make sure that they have thought that through. And again, the business owner and spouse are totally in sync with that.
Yeah, you talked about being prepared, and that you might even delay working with somebody if they are not properly prepared to be going forward. So what are some of the things that a business owner can be doing well in advance of selling the business that would benefit the process?
This is like the first question you asked. There's a lot of things that go into this. And the first thing we look at are the financials. And there's a saying in our world that, bad numbers will kill an opportunity before it ever begins. If somebody's looking at a company and the financials aren't in good shape, then they really don't trust what they're looking at. And if they can't trust that, they can't trust what else they see in the business. So we like to get 5 years of income statements and balance sheets, and we want to make sure that they're all in the same order. They have the same look and feel, that expenses and revenues have been put into the same chart of accounts year after year, that the chart of account names are consistent, that they're not changing year to year. We see that a lot, actually. And if they're not really in good shape, we're probably not going to proceed. And we will tell the business owner that they need to spend $2,500 to $5,000 to get a CPA or fractional controller brought in to clean those up and get them ready for sale. So 5 years of really good financials that are all dialed in are very important. We also like to see a depreciation schedule, and we want to take a look at their tax returns and see if they've exercised Section 179, which is around accelerated depreciation. If they've done a lot of that and they're in a capital intensive business, that could come back to bite them. It's at the sale. They may have to do depreciation recapture penalty costs and pay that back to the IRS. So we need to know what that's all about. We like to see what's on their equipment list. Do they have things that are going to need replacement in a year or two? And if it's really capital intensive, again, that will affect a buyer's offer on the price. If he knows he's got to come in and replace a number of trucks for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, or maybe a printing press, anything like that that's aged out is going to affect the sale. So we want to see the equipment list. We want to know what are some of the personal expenses that are in the business. Everybody does use their business for some personal use. We understand that, but there are things in there that we can add back into the profitability because those are owner optional expenses that they put in the business. And we want to see is there any kind of planning that's been in the business. The reason we bring this up is when somebody looks at a business to buy it, if they can see that the business has had a regular practice of preparing an annual business plan and following it, including a financial operating plan, then they really realize that the business is a very good business and focused, and that adds value, believe it or not. The other thing we want to find out is the sales or the revenue that comes in. Are there a number of different segments that affect revenue, and are the gross margins easy to figure out in each one of those segments? And then KBIs, key business indicators, or KPIs, key performance indicators. We like to see that 3 to 5 of those are in place and that they point directly to the bottom line. And then finally, are there any dependencies in the business? There can be personnel dependencies, including the owner. There can be salespeople, maybe somebody who's really key in IT, maybe somebody who's key in operations. We want to know if there's a dependency that needs to be addressed. And then we want to start to reduce those immediately, okay? One of the things we ask a business owner is, when you go on vacation, can you go away for 3 to 4 weeks and leave your laptop and your cell phone behind and not worry about the business? If the answer is yes, then we realize there's no dependency in the business. The other 2 areas of dependencies that are important for us to look at with a business owner are, do they have too much dependency on a customer, maybe a Costco or an Amazon or somebody like that, or Boeing here in Seattle area, or maybe suppliers? Are they limited in their supply chain? So those are the kind of things that they need to be thinking about in advance of putting their business on the market.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. So that is some great information. I'm looking forward to sharing this with a number of different business owners and other financial professionals. I think you've really laid out a lot to think about, and I'd love to do this again with you.
Well, that sounds good. I appreciate the time, Doug. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and happy if I can help in some way.
Thanks again.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.